And I'm hoping that actually got it. I'm hoping that we managed to do a little sort of fade in, so to speak. Can you confirm that we are live?
I see the stream running. It had a really cool intro going on. I'm hearing your voice from about 6 seconds ago, and we'll see if my
I'm
voice kicks in here.
I'm gonna call that a win, and we just need to make sure that your volume
Yeah,
is
wow.
good.
Sounds like my volume is good. You can hear me. You can hear you. I think we're laughing.
Fantastic. So here we are. It is Monday. It is Mapping Movie Madness with Jack. Welcome, Jack.
Hello, my dear.
And welcome all of you to the Alyssa Faden Show. We've never called it the Alyssa Faden Show before, but tonight we are. Welcome, my legionaries. Today we are back on the Age of Antiquity map. We're just gonna. I want to really try and hammer on this thing for the next 2 to 3 weeks. My objective is to be done with it no later than end of June. I really, really, really want to push hard for that. So I'm just going to be working on this. I'm probably going to be working on, I think, the rich area. And let's just see if we could just like force our way down south here. Let's do it. And Rodney is here. Welcome, welcome, welcome.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm dying. Oh, I'm death. Death. All right.
Oh, we've lost her, folks.
Okay, I'm back. So, Jack, you said that there was a couple of things that you wanted to talk about.
Oh yeah, well, and one of the things. So this last weekend was the release on Netflix of Zack Snyder's Army of the Dead, starring Dave Bautista and a cast of characters. Um, and you pointed out, which you and I both found extremely entertaining. Issues, yes, the things in the plot that didn't make sense, but we enjoyed it. It was a good zombie flick. It was a good cheesy, action-packed zombie flick for us. And you pointed out this afternoon, which I had heard about as well, but I didn't do any looking into it, was the fact that it is supposedly the first film in what they're hoping will be like a zombie cinematic universe, situation. Which part of me is like, because I enjoyed the movie, sure, yay, yeah. If there were other movies that are part of this, part of this universe, let's do it. It might be a lot of fun. But at the same time, I'm also like, stop with the freaking connected universes. How about you just make some movies and then you connect them later? Like, don't announce the cinematic universe before it's a thing. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I go to the Universal Monsters reboot Dark universe that they were trying to do. And they came out with the Mummy movie, the Mummy Returns, or Mummy Jama. Tom Cruise fighting a big, sand lady. It was like, and that movie didn't do well. It did pretty poorly, and they decided to scrap the whole cinematic universe. But the thing is they had so much press and so much attention and so many articles and so many interviews and casting announcements and all these different things because they were trying to force a cinematic universe out there before the movies hadn't even come out. Like, they were like, we're going to do a cinematic universe, and we've cast, Russell Crowe as, he's going to be Dr. Jekyll, and, he's going to be, a side character in the Mummy movie with Tom Cruise, and the Tom Cruise Mummy movie is going to be kicking off our entire cinematic universe. But they didn't have a roadmap planned out. They didn't have, like, I don't know. It's like Marvel, and everybody compares it to Marvel because Marvel actually had a very successful cinematic universe, that's still going. But the thing is they were still focused on one movie at a time. Let's start with Iron Man. Let's start with the Captain America. And yeah, you lay seeds for a potential cinematic universe, but they weren't making a big deal about it. Like, this is what we're doing, guys. Yeah, this is going to be great. Because if Iron Man sucked and nobody went and saw it, that would have been it. There would have been no universe. So I don't know. So it's just I'm getting frustrated with movie studios announcing cinematic universes when they've only had a film. and they announce those cinematic universes before they even know if like they've done well. And it's like, how about you make one movie? If it does well, make a second movie that then you'd be like, hey, this is a continuation of that universe. Isn't that great? And if the second one does well or does okay, then you do a third movie and then you go, hey, this is part of that same universe. So it's not really a trilogy because they're all different stories involving different people, but it's part of a cinematic universe. So they're all related. And then people can go, oh, that's really cool. I like this idea. Or they can go, your movies suck. We don't care. Whatever it may be. But just get one. Make a good movie. If it does well, sure, make another movie. Try to make another movie. And make sure that one does well too. Don't let it suffer from sequelitis. Don't cut any corners because you're quickly trying to get out the next movie. It's like Ubisoft with the Assassin's Creed games. They started to get real bad because they were losing the what made Assassin's Creed good. They were so busy trying to get more stories, more games, more money out there that they were just like churning out games by the end that just were buggy and unplayable and everybody hated. Until they finally had to throttle back and go, okay, we need to stop doing this and actually spend time on our products. Otherwise we're going to drive all of our customers away.
So is it the premature nature of it that bugs you? Like they have decided that it's going to be a cinematic universe?
Yeah, like right off the bat, they're like, this is the first movie of an entire cinematic universe. Like, okay, slow down. You're not even 100% sure this movie's done well because they made that announcement before figures were in. And obviously because it's not like a traditional box office, streaming numbers aren't released to the public by the companies, the companies who own the streaming numbers, because that information is not readily available. They don't offer it up. Unlike box office numbers. Hey, Brian McWhorter's here. Hello.
Hey, Brian. We're talking about cinematic universes, the pros and cons, and how they annoy Jack, or the new announcements before they've even made a movie.
Yeah, it's cinematic. I'm all for cinematic universes, especially, when they are done well. I don't like it when things are rushed, and I don't like it when, and as I've been saying, Brian, to catch you up, I don't like when they announce cinematic universes before they know if the first film's going to be any good, and before they have plans for other films, and then those other films, if they're even good themselves. So I'm a big fan of do one. If it works, do another one. See if that one works. If it suffers from terrible sequelitis, which so many movies do, where the second movie they try to recapture the things that made the first one special and they just fail because you can't just make something that's identical to the one before it. It doesn't work that way. That's just me.
So how is this? Okay. So is this? Let me pause because I'm about to gabble. If there's no real difference between someone saying we haven't released this movie yet, but we've decided it's going to be part of a series, and we haven't released this movie yet, and we decided it's part of a cinematic universe. I suppose the cinematic universe is the fact that it could have completely different movies with completely different actors, but it's part of the same, setting, right?
Right.
But the theory is the same. They haven't tested the water. They haven't proven that they've got something worthy of it, and they've already decided they're going down that route. Is that what bugs you? Because Zack Snyder, I didn't get the impression that Zack Snyder said it was going to be, only that it was a possibility. So is there a change in nuance around that? Is it more like when you've got something like the Mummy or whatever it was, and they are trying to set it up and they're almost forcing it? Is that what bugs you, or is it the fact that they've made a decision?
I think it's it's the fact that they're trying to force it. And if you think about it, it's the forced decision. If you think about it, like if they did the first Mummy movie and they were like, we would love for this to be the thing that starts off the kind of a rebooted Universal Monsters franchise. We would love that possibility. It's like, great, let's see how you do with this one then. You know, it leaves it open-ended. So if it doesn't do well, you know, it's one of those things where the fans didn't get their hopes up. You didn't have to waste a lot of money. I mean, like, I give a shit, you know, I have no stake in any of these, you know, movie studios and their, you know, in how they make their decisions or how they make their money, obviously. But it's one of those things where, you know, I'm a big fan of not wasting people's time and money and energy. You know, that's just something with me in general. And so with like the Mummy movie, you know, they were like before it even was released, it hadn't even come out yet. Critics hadn't seen it. Nobody saw it. They were like, this is gonna be, hey, Phantom Jin, how are you?
Hey, Phantom Jin.
It was nobody had seen the film yet, and they were like, this Mummy movie is going to be the beginning of our dark universe, cinematic universe. So not only were they planning on doing the whole like rebooting all of the, you know, the Universal monsters, they were like, we've cast Javier Bardem. I think he's going to be Dr. Frankenstein, because they're going to redo like the Frankenstein movie. And then we've cast Johnny Depp. He's going to be the Invisible Man. And Tom Cruise is obviously going to be connected with the Mummy movie somehow. That movie was terrible, but that's part of the point. And then Russell Crowe as Dr. Jekyll, and he's not going to have like a solo movie, he's going to be a character that kind of is like, you know, almost like the Nick Fury and like the Marvel Cinematic Universe. And it's like, okay, and you're doing interviews and photo shoots. I have a photo shoot of Tom Cruise, Johnny Depp, Javier Bardem, the girl who plays the Mummy, Russell Crowe. There might have even been another actor in the photo. I don't remember. But it was like all of these things. They were making this whole big announcement, like, this is what we're doing. And the Mummy movie hadn't come out yet. Nobody had viewed it. Like, no critics had viewed it. They had no feedback on whether it was going to do well. And that movie was terrible, and critics hated it. And it didn't make as much money as they wanted. And so they completely scrapped the entire thing. And I'm sitting here like, why make such a big deal over this dark universe thing if you're not going to go all the way? You know, it's like, if you made that much of a commitment, just fucking go for it at that point. Like, if you're like, sure, if your first movie didn't work as much as you wanted, but you've made so much of a big deal about it, you better keep going, because the next time you make some big giant announcement like that, I'm going to just roll my eyes and go, yeah, sure. This will be a big franchise. I believe you. It just is annoying. It's frustrating for me. That's just me. Marvel now they've gained enough steam, they've gained enough traction because of their track record, that now they are like, we have a cinematic universe, so here are the movies that are coming out that are gonna be in it. They've announced stuff that hasn't even begun. They haven't even begun shooting some of the stuff they've got announced. But because they've built a reliable track record, I'm not frustrated or annoyed by that, because it's like, yeah, you guys have proven that you can do it. I believe you. Even with some of your movies that don't do great, I mean, I think their worst movies still make a buttload of profit, which is so funny. That, like, you know, some of their worst movies, people are like, oh, this movie didn't do as well as the others. And it's like, oh no, it only made like, you know, $500 million as opposed to $1 billion. You know, oh no. So, yeah. That's me with announcing cinematic universes before you even know what you're doing.
Is it fair to say, though, that there is... I don't know, I couldn't see Marvel announcing a new cinematic universe without trying the waters, or have they?
Well, no, they haven't announced a new cinematic universe.
No, and that's my point, and I'm just making sure my point is valid. You know, even they wouldn't come out and say, we are creating a new cinematic universe right here.
Right.
I think it's the ones that say we are, then they pull back. But also, I don't know, there are certain studios that aren't willing... If they say that they want $1 billion in profits, but they only earn $350 million or something, it's like they're just throwing it all away. It's like, that's a different type of thinking as well, you know. I'm not sure if I'm
Right.
making any sense there.
No, yeah, you totally are. It's the, I mean, because obviously, I mean, the show business is the big part of it is the business side of things, and if things don't make a good gazillion bajillion dollars, oh, hello to Tarnish Knight, Alex, and Julius. Hello.
Oh, hey, happy Monday to all of you, or Tuesday to young Alex there.
We are talking
And
about
Tonic Night.
cinematic universes. And
We're
yes,
talking
Brian,
about prematurely announcing that you are doing a cinematic universe before you've even made your bloody movie and seen if it's going to be a financial success. And then the annoyance when these companies really have zero tolerance for less than anything stellar and then start pulling out all of the bloody, everything that they said and like going back on it all. And this came about because Jack and I watched, Army of the Dead?
Army of the Dead, yeah.
Zack Snyder's Army of the Dead. We were entertained. It's got problems. It's got a lot of problems, but we were entertained. It's a zombie movie. What do you expect? But it's also meant to be part of a cinematic universe. So it's like, okay, so... And then Jack brought up the whole horror thing that the Mummy started off with.
The dark universe.
The dark universe, right. So it's like, cinematic universes, yay or nay? And at what point is it okay to say that you are doing a cinematic universe?
Yeah, and Brian brings up that Dracula Untold story, the one with Luke Evans, where it's supposed to be like the origin story of Dracula. And that one was one that they had already created that movie, and I think it had already come out. And then they had the idea to do the Dark Universe thing, and they were going to do the Mummy, and that was going to be like the first official one is the Dark Universe. And I think they were planning on retconning it, so the Dracula was going to be part of it. Like they were going to be like, and we'll totally retroactively be like, yeah, that's in the Monster Universe, or that's in our Dark Universe too. But then when the Mummy didn't do well and they decided to scrap the whole idea, they're like, no, they were like, no, it's fine, it's all. Yeah, Dracula's just its own movie. It's like, okay, whatever, I will.
Do you think? I mean, there's something to be said that audiences definitely have the flavor of the film that they want to watch, and it comes in phases, right? Like we're less on westerns nowadays, but it used to be super hot. We're less on World War II movies, even though there's been some great ones actually recently. But there was definitely a lull in those, while the 60s and 70s were clearly super hot on them. Is it fair to say that we as an audience just don't really give a shit about the horror universes?
Yeah, Alex, you were not here for the first part of the conversation. That's the Dark Universe was a major part of the convo just a moment ago. Tarnish Knight is saying that he doesn't think that cinematic universes like should be around at all. Horror is kind of a weird. It's a niche genre these days. It seems like. And I mean, I appreciate. I think what they're trying to do is they're trying to make them more artistic. They're trying to make them not traditional, because I think that the traditional horror that you're kind of referring to is not. I don't think it's in vogue anymore. Like kind of like what you're saying. I mean, at least that's what it seems like.
Yeah, in vogue. In vogue's a good word for it.
And so the horror movies that do come out are trying to be clever, or they're trying to be different, or they're trying to do a new take on an old idea. They're trying to be different, but it doesn't seem like there's as much. But then again, you know what? I'm not as versed in that genre necessarily. So I don't know. For all I know, the horror genre is doing great, and that's just not part of it. So.
Yeah, Alex, but they pulled the whole Dark Universe thing. That was the point. We actually spoke about, the fact that they announced this whole Dark Universe and all of the movies and the actors that were going to be in it. We spoke about that at the beginning, and then Mummy didn't do too well, so like suddenly it's tumbleweeds, you know.
Yeah, and I already am having an issue with this list because the recent 2020 Invisible Man is on here, and I did not see any article um, saying that this was connected to it. So I would be interested in actually seeing an actual interview with someone from the studio saying that it was part of it, because their original Invisible Man was supposed to be Johnny Depp, and he was supposed to be the protagonist, as opposed to the Invisible Man film that came out, in which the main character was the girl and the Invisible Man was the antagonist. So if you have a link to an interview of somebody from the studio confirming that it was part of the Dark Universe, I'd be interested in seeing. Fandom pages are kind of can be troublesome because they are literally just pages put together by fans. So
Stop it! Stop it! Stop it! I think I'm willing to go along with someone saying, and we hope it can become, you know, a cinematic universe. We have hopes and plans for a cinematic universe. I can definitely get behind that. I'm okay with that. What about you?
I apologize. Can you say that like one more time?
Oh, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. You reading that article from Alex?
No, I was just pulling it up. I was pulling it up. I was just distracted by it. I would love to hear what you asked and said.
It's okay. It's okay.
Yeah, the article doesn't confirm anything. The journalist, seems like it's their opinion that it's their attempt of rebooting it, but that's an argument I don't wish to have. It's irrelevant. And kind of not the topic at hand. The topic at hand is announcing.
When is it okay to announce a cinematic universe?
I would say when you've done a couple of movies independently that have done well. I would almost say, see, and I almost am with Tarnished Knight, and like we don't need the fact that we almost don't need to label stuff as cinematic universes. If you think about it, it's like, why can't you just have interconnected movies? Okay, yes, I guess that turns into it's a cinematic universe. But I would say, how about just make a good movie? Cool. If the movie is good, and it actually legitimately is good, great. If you want to make another movie that's connected to it, do it and make it a good movie. And then you can put in all the Easter eggs or direct connections and cast bring in a new character, bring in the character that's from the first one into the movie and be like, look, these two movies are connected. They're their own little cinematic universe. Isn't that great? And people can go, wow, that's cool. And then do a third movie and just make the movie good. Make it a good movie. And then be like, hey, look, all these connections to those other two movies. Look at that cinematic universe. I mean, that's what I want. I just want, it's like, make good movies. And if you want them to connect, do that. But I don't know, just make a good freaking movie and make them one at a time. Once you've got a good track record, like make 3 in a row. They don't even have to be necessarily a trilogy. It doesn't need to be like part 1, part 2, part 3. Just make like 3 movies that are interconnected and they're all good movies. Then be like, hey, guess what? We got plans for another 3 movies that are going to be connected to those 3 we just did. Then I'd be like, you know what? You've proven you've done 3 great movies that are all interconnected. I'm excited for your next 3 because you've proven that you can do it, and that's cool. That's a cool idea. I'm really interested now to see where these new 3 movies connect to these other ones you've done. I think that would be the magic number for me, 3. I don't know. What about you?
When did Marvel decide that they were doing a cinematic? Wasn't Iron Man 1, was it?
Well, Kevin Feige, who's obviously the head guy at Marvel, he hoped Iron Man would do so well. So he actually prepared the post-credit scene with Samuel Jackson um, to rattle off a bunch of other properties. And he does a version of it. He doesn't do the full version, which you can actually find as a deleted scene like on YouTube and stuff, where he brings where Sam Jackson brings up Spider-Man, he brings up like the X-Men, he brings up, other people with powers. And they used an alternate version because they didn't actually have the rights to those other. They didn't have the rights to Spider-Man. They didn't have rights to the X-Men, so they couldn't use it for the movie. But he put it out there because he was like, if this does well, and in the past there have been, the comic book movies have done 50-50. If this does well, we could do more. So let's tease everybody and be like, hey, if you like this, we can do another one. And sure enough, Iron Man blew the freaking socks off of everybody. And there's Samuel Jackson, Nick Fury at the end saying, I want to talk to you about the Avengers Initiative. And people, comic book fans, were like, holy crap, are you telling me that there's a chance that this could lead to an Avengers movie? That was a bit cheating because they had source material to go off of. Well, I guess so did the Dark Universe, really, technically. Never mind. But I think they might have been hoping. I don't think they had stuff set in stone, but I think they were hoping that their Iron Man did so well. But Iron Man, they were flying by the seat of their pants, though. I mean, they started filming before the script was done. They were making up stuff on the spot. There's some cool behind the scenes footage where you can see. Like Jeff Bridges and Robert Downey Jr. And Jon Favreau on the set talking about like lines, and in one of the clips that I saw, like Jeff Bridges is like, would he say that here? I don't think the tone of this scene is right. I think I'm going to say something else, and I think I'm going to get right up in Rob's face here. And he's like, and he gets right up in Robert Downey Jr.'s face, and and he's like, and I think I would like, and Favreau's like, all right, let's do that, and it's like, shit, they're just making shit up on the spot. It's like, holy crap, are you kidding me right here? Flying by the seat of their pants.
Come on.
So yeah, it's kind of one of those. I'm glad that they did well, but if they didn't do well, I'd be in the boat of I wish they wouldn't have aimed so high, But then again, the thing with Marvel, they didn't announce it. They didn't announce right away, hey, this is what we're gonna do. It was almost like them going, possibility, maybe.
Wasn't the League of Extraordinary Gentlemen an early version of that? I guess that was just them talking about doing a series.
Yeah, I actually don't know. I mean, I know it was based on a series of graphic novels. And when they did the first one, I have no idea if they were planning on doing more after that. I do know that movie was a nightmare in production, supposedly, and Sean Connery was, I think if I'm not mistaken, was like really douchey about it. Like, he was like really expensive to get.
Go on.
Ooh. Intermission here, folks.
Go on.
We have a problematic furry child.
Yeah, I'm just not in the mood for watching him sitting there chewing on things. So, I have the spray gun. It had to be done.
No problem. Should he start acting up again, I shall. It'll be my turn. It'll be Papa's turn to go take care of our little furry baby.
Well, and I think so, Julius. I think it's okay to have like a. And really, this whole sort of started off about like when is it okay to announce a universe, and I suppose there's an overlap with when is it okay to announce a series, because they're very closely related in concept. I mean, a universe allows you to have different actors, completely different stories, different characters, and say, yeah, but they're all in the same universe. Well, a series, hopefully is a related series of stories, much like Jason Bourne.
Right.
I wouldn't say that Jason Bourne, the 4 movies or whatever it is that they did, makes it a universe, even though one could make an argument that it is. I would say it's a series. But I also didn't hear them, and I could be wrong on this, say we are making a series out of this before they've even made the first one. And that's what chaps Jack's ass is
Right.
when they start throwing themselves into this universe or series, and it's like, yeah, but you haven't even made the first one yet. We don't even know how the first one did. And that the Army of the Dead that we watched is what kicked this off. It's like, and I don't think they've said we are doing a universe, but certainly there's a potential, and they've said that there's a potential for it. Does that make it okay? Does that make it okay that they have hopes for a universe? I think it does. I think that's okay.
Yeah. Yeah, saying hey, this potentially opens up. We want to do it. It's like, okay, cool. If you do another one, like I'm sitting here going like, I would love to see another zombie movie that's connected with Army of the Dead. Let's do it. Yeah, we had problems with Army of the Dead, but it was enjoyable. It was a zombie flick, and it was a well-made one. So I'm all for it.
I'm not going to do any spoilers here. Obviously, there are some characters that die in Army of the Dead, if you've not seen it. Of course, it's a zombie movie. I would actually have a problem, and actually this starts to get into the Matrix 4, in a way, when they do a series or a universe, is fine, but they bring back a character that's died. I have problems with that.
Right. Yeah, that would be a little silly. That would be a little silly. There's even been some TV shows. As a matter of fact, funnily enough, because we actually saw the actor in Army of the Dead. The actor who played the security head for the business guy, he was in Deadwood. Excuse me, Deadwood. I was like combining Deadwood and Westworld.
Yes, you were.
He was in Deadwood, and in the first season, he's the guy that, spoilers, offs a major character. I'll leave it at that. He offs a major character
in
Deadwood, and you're like, oh, and then, but the funny thing is that character's dealt with and that character's done. Well, a couple of seasons later, that same actor comes in as a brand new character, and that's not exactly what you're saying because it's obviously a different character, but it's the same actor, and so it's like, well, wait a minute.
that was a little confusing to have the same actor, and it didn't even like change a mustache or a beard. It's like it's the same freaking dude.
It's clearly the same actor, so it's like, what the heck?
That was really interesting that they did that.
So I mean, I guess if they decided to do almost like a anthology movie series where it's like they're keeping the same actors but they're playing different characters each time they come in, that would be odd. But no, I think it should be if a character has been offed in one of the previous zombie movies, they're not allowed to come back.
I had hopes that World War Z was going to be like that and closer to the books.
Yeah.
There's a cinematic universe, but there's also dozens of different stories and dozens of different characters. But maybe that's what Zack Snyder's kind of shooting for here.
That would actually be kind of interesting if he's basically doing what we had hoped World War Z was going to be, where it's like it's going to be one of the stories, and then you follow it, and then the next movie is going to be another one of the stories that runs parallel. Maybe it even happens at the same time, and then maybe you can have some characters overlap. Right, Brian McWhirter. That's exactly what I was thinking of, funnily enough, when I was bringing up the anthology where the same actors come in and play different characters. The American Horror Story show. Every season is a brand new story, completely different than the previous season, but they'll recast a lot of the same actors, and they're just now playing new characters in this story. So... yeah, like Sin City obviously was like a bunch of stories, but they still crammed them into one movie. Imagine if they had enough material in Sin City that they were able to do like a whole movie just for each of those things, each of those short stories, so to speak. But again, the fact that they if they turned around, if the studio turned around and was like, Army of the Dead did so well, we're going to do 5 more movies and they're all going to be part of the Army of the Dead cinematic universe, then I would go, oh man, really? How about we do another movie? How about you do one more? Just do one more and make it good and make it connected to the last one. If you just announce a movie, great, do that. Announce one more movie, say it's connected, and make it good. But don't like promise 5 right away. That's like James Cameron. Speaking of which, this is similar to Cinematic Universe, except these are sequels. But after Avatar did so well, and it's back now at being the #1 film of all time worldwide, it's like, I've got scripts for Avatars 2 through 5, and I'm going to start working on them right away. It's going to be 5 movies in this series. And everyone was like, the first movie was so great and it made $1 bajillion. Let's do it. Yeah. Where's freaking 2, James Cameron? Where's number freaking 2 at this point? It's taken you so long to come out with the second one. Sam Worthington, who was your star in the first one, isn't even a freaking big name actor anymore like he was when it first came out. He's dropped off the radar for most everybody. It's taken you so freaking long to come out with the second one. Good Lord.
I think you're tickling Tarnished Knight's giblets here. I think he's agreeing with you.
Avatar, the tech demo. Yeah, I know, right? It's when movies sequel bait that you hack me off. See, and it depends on how heavy the sequel bait is. Like, if it's like, I know the movie was terrible. I know the movie was real bad. But like Super Mario Brothers, the movie, like at the end, the princess busts back into their apartment. She's all like decked out with like machine guns and ammo and stuff. And she's like, I got trouble, guys. Let's go. And like the brothers are like, they grab their gear and they're like, let's go. And they go charging out the door to like have another adventure. And then it's like, you know, they'll be back for Mario Brothers 2. And it's like, no, they won't, because this movie was real bad and everybody hated it. And it's like, okay, that's a major sequel bait. Don't do that. But if you hint at a potential sequel by something, like hint like, ooh, look at that thing that we left the camera on a little bit longer than we might have normally. Ooh, are we hinting that maybe this little thing that we're focusing on could potentially go forward? Maybe. That's like I see what you guys are doing. Okay. Kind of sequel baiting me, but your story is going to conclude and we're good. And then when you do decide to do a second movie, assuming the first one did well, and they're like, remember that thing we focused on? And we're like, I knew you were going to do something with that. Good on you guys, you know, then it's okay. It depends. It depends on the sequel baiting.
So it is the sequel baiting, and so that offends you the most. And so when they say we're making a film, and by the way, it's part of a cinematic universe, and these are the other films we're going to do, and these are all of the fact that they're so upfront about the sequel, that's what bugs you the most. Probably.
And the fact that, like, you know, like in the Mummy movie with going back to that whole thing, the Mummy movie with Tom Cruise, they didn't bother to explain the Dr. Jekyll character with Russell Crowe, because what they were planning on doing is, because he was going to be the through line for all the movies, they were going to give you a little bit more about him in each movie, like developing his character. So I'm annoyed because they only did the one, and I'm like, but you didn't fucking develop his character at all. Like, he seems like he would be a cool character, but you don't know anything about the damn guy. And you barely find out anything about him. You know, I mean, yes, obviously, if you've read Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde, you know essentially what's going on. But like, they've obviously changed it a little bit for the film, but they don't explain anything about that, because in their head they're thinking, we've got like 5 movies. We're gonna do this line. Like in every movie, you're gonna have a moment with this character that you're gonna be like, ooh, learned a little bit more about Dr. Jekyll. This is cool. Oh, god dang it. No, it's just, that's lazy. Because now you're like, we don't have to write anything about this character. We can introduce him, have people go, what's this guy's deal? And then we don't have to worry about explaining it, because we'll worry about it later. Except when there's no other movies, there's no later, and now you have a movie where it's like, what the hell's the point of this character? Yeah. This is Monday Jack ranting.
This is definitely the curmudgeon hour.
This is Jack being a curmudgeon. Oh yes, it's random Jed. James Cameron is too busy writing Titanic 2. Yes, the Titanicing. Oh, it's so bad. Yeah, him and Ridley Scott. You know, Ridley Scott's still working on, I think, Gladiator 2, the one that involves like aliens and otherworldly beings
I'm
that
so
are
glad that that never happened.
resurrect Maximus to fight in future wars or some bullshit. Oh, good lord.
That would have made me so sad.
One series that is developing sequelitis is Tremors. After they did the fifth film, it seemed like that was it, but then they came up with a sixth. Yeah. I mean, I don't know if the Tremors movies are trying to be anything than what they are, so.
It's a little bit like Fast and Furious at this point, isn't it?
Right.
They know what they are, and they're okay with it.
They're totally embracing it. Yeah. Yeah, it's funny. There's even they even did one of the Tremors where it was like a, and it very much felt like an anthology movie. It was like takes place in the past, and yet they had a lot of the same actors playing different characters, or like ancestors of their characters from later characters in the series. It was actually pretty entertaining, and especially since what's his name, the main dude, oh god, I can't believe I'm freaking balking on his name. What's the main dude's name? Michael Gross. Michael Gross, the guy who plays Gummer. He he's in all of the rest of the series, like in the first Tremors, and if from onward, except for the one where it's in the past, he's the survivalist, he's gun guy, he's the guy that, like, in the first movie, he's like him and Reba are like the married couple that have like the bunker with all the guns and ammo in their basement. When the Tremor busts through, they freaking like just annihilate the thing with all their guns and ammo. Well, in the fourth one, he's playing like his ancestor, and he's like prim and proper, like, nobleman who, like, he like has like a derringer and he's kind of scared to use it, like, kind of a thing. And it's funny, and then his character has to like learn to be a badass, and then later he's then a badass, and like his descendants are all badasses who love guns. It is entertaining, but again, Tremors movies, I don't think they're trying to be anything that they're not. So graboids, there you go. I don't think I saw 5, 6, or 7 of the Tremors series. How about you, Alyssa? Are you a big Tremors fan?
I've seen one. The first one. That's it.
The best one. The best one.
Not that I'm snooty and going out my way not to watch them, just my movie viewing life took me in a different direction, you know?
Right. No, and they're definitely an acquired taste for sure. I'm sure I'm sure they're, you know, I mean, it's, you know, they're you know, comedy, horror, you know, cheesy movies, you know. Holy scamoli, the 7th film just came out last year. I didn't realize that. Tremors, Shrieker Island. Came out October of 2020. Wow. That is awesome. Pretty sure Michael Gross will be playing Gummer till he passes. He'll be playing that character from the Tremors franchise until he dies. Tarnished Knight has ever seen Deep Rising? What does that sound familiar? Alyssa, do you recall Deep Rising?
I have seen Deep Rising.
...1998 action horror flick directed by Steven Sommers, starring Treat Williams, Famke Jensen, and Anthony Held. I don't know if I've seen this.
I'm pretty sure I've seen it. The name is way too familiar. I can remember nothing about it.
Oh, Wes Studi's in it. Jason Fleming's in it. Cliff Curtis is in it. Joe Manhanzu's in it. What on earth? This is going on the list. What on earth is happening right now? This is going on the list. There are too many good people in this movie. Huh. Not Wes Studi's best film. Well, I can imagine it's if it's an action horror movie that comes up in a conversation when we're talking about Tremors, I can't imagine it's going to be at the top of his list. But then again, Wes Studi was in Street Fighter, so he kind of gets a pass for making other stupid movies.
Did you see that Tarnished Knight says lady gets pulled down the toilet, and Peck's joint comes in with a whoosh right after it? I don't think Peck's realizes what he did. The comedic timing was on point.
It was Peck coming out of the toilet, grabbed her, threw her down, and came flying out. That's fantastic. Indeed. Oh God, Street Fighter was all right. Oh no.
No, it wasn't. No, it wasn't. Oh, no. Get out. Get out. No, it wasn't.
Oh no. Alex bringing in the hammer. No whoosh, you're late. Whoosh privileges are for the first 20 minutes only.
I think that's fair. Yeah, you can't whoosh in 50 minutes into the show. I've watched Street Fighter. That's how I know it's terrible.
Oh no, it is. Oh, Brian, if you're saying that and also Tarnished Knight, if you guys are saying that it's great because it's so bad, then that I can get. Like watching a movie that's so bad that you've got friends over or family over or maybe just yourself and you watch it because it's so bad, like you like to make fun of it. I'm all for you. However, if you like Street Fighter because you like it, like you honestly love it,
then there's something wrong with you.
I usually don't criticize people for their interest for their movie likes, but I got big criticism if that's where you're coming from. Let's see. Forest Roads comes in. If I might say something non-movie related,
yes.
I'd like to commend Alyssa's patience and diligence to draw all those little buildings. Back to the map. Huzzah!
I really appreciate it. The Monday streams tend to be a little bit different because I'm not talking about the map at all. But what I'm doing right now is kind of brain off, and I tend to do a lot of this off camera. But yeah, it starts to take shape, doesn't it? When you're viewing it like this. Definitely making progress. There's still a lot of work to do. But I'm hoping in the next 2 to 3 weeks we have all of the ink work done. That's my plan. That is my plan.
It does look fantastic, I must admit.
It's definitely coming along.
Yeah.
Way denser in buildings, little tiny buildings than I was planning on. It kind of breaking my brain, but yeah, it's definitely coming along. I don't know how much I'll get done up here, but I just want to kind of, if I can bring the rich district down to about that line, I'll be happy tonight. That's asking for something, but I think I can do it.
Forest Roads is reminding you that...
Forest, I do remember you from last Wednesday. In fact, I really want to go back to that map. I really do. But once I've got the ink work on this one done, I will be... Probably all my streams are going to be on that one. Although, I'm not sure it's going to take that long, to be honest with you, the star map. But Wednesdays, we'll just then do a completely different map. And you could help me with Photoshop on that one, too.
I know you actually have had, now we're on now we're back to map talk. What is this, a mapping channel? Who brought
map
this
talk.
Up? But since you brought up, obviously, other maps and stuff. I know you had a couple of maps you had been working on before, while you were in between projects. Do you find yourself ever returning to any of those, do you think, for some of your streams?
Yeah, maybe. So here's a funny idea. I was actually talking to Anna Maya over the weekend, and one suggestion she had was for me to do World of Greyhawk city maps. And I'm sitting there thinking, when would I ever have the time to do another series of maps? But apparently the city maps for World of Greyhawk are either non-existent or pretty damn shit. So I'm sitting there thinking, that could be a fun project to get into. The problem is I would need to know the lore of these cities inside and out, and I don't, like, at all. And I find the learning curve to be intimidating, gotta be honest with you. But that could be fun. Otherwise, yes, things like Keystone Reforged, that could be a good map to get back to, because I was in the process of colouring that one.
Nice, yeah. Peck saying, can confirm their shittiness of the Greyhawk city maps.
I don't know if I'd hit any licensing issues on that.
That was actually going to be my next question.
I don't know. I mean, I don't even know who owns the property. I mean, it's got to have something to do with the kobolds, right?
I would think
no, wait. I think she said that if you're doing it just for yourself and you're releasing it for free, then you're generally okay. I tend to find it pretty murky. Because if you've got the attention of, Watsy or something, I'm assuming Watsy owns it. I can only imagine it'd shut you down fast.
Right. And I bet you, I bet you she knows, because she does so much stuff in that world. I bet you she knows, these people own these bits, or these people own all of the bits, and this type of thing, and blah, blah, blah.
I don't think I'd be able to sell them, though,
Right.
I'd never be able to do prints or even sell electronic versions of them. I'd rather focus on drawing things on camera that people can then put their hands on, that I have total rights to. 99% of the stuff I create, I don't have rights to. I have limited rights. I don't know. It'd be fun to draw a whole bunch of villages or small towns and stuff like that, and be a little bit more quickfire with them.
Right. Not having to worry about existing lore and being able to advertise and sell them on your own, whether it be prints or if you have an artist booth at a con selling, again, prints or, what have you. It'd be nice if it's this is mine. I created this. I don't have to worry about rights issues and that type of thing.
Right.
That makes sense. Obviously, when people, hire you to do your maps, obviously, I know you retain a lot of that freedom yourself, but that's because they've hired you to do something. You just doing something of your own, that's where, I think issues come in like you said, like you could do a Greyhawk Mac, but then you couldn't turn around and take it to a con and sell it because they'd be like, oh, wait a minute. We thought you were just doing that for your funsies. What's going on?
Yeah, exactly. I'm going to guess, I mean, Greyhawk, it's got to be owned by WotC, right? It has to be.
Probably. I mean...
And there's no way that they're going to be chill with me drawing their cities. Even if it's my style, my art, their city name slapped on it, and then doing anything with it. I mean, I guess if you give it away as part of your Patreon, but even that could get you in trouble, because there was some computer... Oh, someone was making a mod or something like that for... Oh, it was Skyrim. It was like Skyrim Online. And the problem was he was actually earning something like $20,000 a month on his Patreon. And that's what Bethesda took objection to, because they said, you are now earning money out of this. These donations are actually you earning money, and they were able to shut him down because of it. So I think if you got too popular, I would fall afoul of something similar.
Right. I mean, I don't think Bethesda has an issue with things like the Nexus, because yes, there's the mods out there, but they're for free. And then if you are going to chip in money, you're chipping money to the site that you're getting the mods from. Not necessarily, you're not paying the mod directly. I mean, you're not paying for that mod directly, and that person is making like a direct profit from it. So yeah, the people that are like, that was similar with the people that were trying to, I think it was was it a Kickstarter or was it a Patreon, where they were like remaking, I think Knights of the Old Republic or something. And Lucas, LucasArts came in and were like, yeah, no, you're not remaking shit without our say so. It's like, we don't care how many people backed you. You're not allowed to do this. That's our property. And they were like, but we weren't even asking you for money. We're going to use this money for the funding of this thing. And they're like, yeah, we don't care.
Yeah, it's an IP thing at that point. And I think if you're pretty small, like a lot of these people that are, modding something or, whatever, you can get away with it. It's when you get to a certain point and you suddenly catch someone's attention. And I am pretty sure that if I was drawing the Greyhawk City maps and promoted it sufficiently, I would catch someone's attention about what I was doing.
Yeah. Somebody from WotC would be going, excuse me? Has anybody been in communication with Alyssa? Yeah.
Especially, they're pretty bloody big now. They got a lot of clout.
Oh, is that what it is, Brian? With the Axonar, that sounds familiar. Was that what I was thinking of? Or is that the one that was that the film that they were doing? That they tried to, that the people who own Star Trek tried to shut down.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure, Pex, they would frown pretty heavily on me drawing and selling their city maps. So I'd never be able to sell them.
Right.
I guess that the theory would be, well, I'm not selling them, I'm just giving them away to my patrons. You just have to do it that way. And I'm pretty sure that if they wanted to come at you for that, they still would.
Let's see, Brian says Axonar was going to be a fan film, but they shut it down because they were actually making money off it.
That's the thing, isn't it? If someone sees you making money off it, and they put the dots together, I think you can get yourself into trouble.
And Alex bringing up Blizzard and the fan servers. When Blizzard found out how popular fan-run servers were, they fired the nukes, aka the legal teams. Ugh. See, that's just crappy right there. It's just freaking game servers, for God's sakes. If people have spent money on your game, they've got your game, they bought your game already. What the hell? But I mean, I guess with Blizzard, you actually have to pay a subscription to play on their servers and keep your games up and running. So maybe there's that. Maybe the fan ones were like, you don't need to have a membership with us.
Well, that conversation went dead.
I think I personally am pondering the discussion, us talking about it, and there's a little people. There's some people chatting about that Star Trek Axanar, one, and that type of thing, and Pex was saying, was bringing up with things with Greyhawk and how, but whether or not you name things outright or not, might be a loophole that people can sometimes get away with. That type of thing. And then Pex brings up, look at Bruce Hurd and Kaladar. Not Mystara, but totally Mystara, but not wink wink.
I've actually not heard of have I heard of Mystara? I think I have heard of Mystara. Yes. Okay. No, I see that. But if you're doing your own thing and like, okay, so I draw a city that's heavily based upon insert Greyhawk city name here, but I draw my city, don't really, it's not named the same, then it's not the same anymore. It's just a city,
Right.
And people aren't going to see it as a Greyhawk city. I might as well just draw cities at that point.
Right, because if there are hardcore fans of Greyhawk, they're going to want it to be this is officially the city that, that from Greyhawk. You being like, it's my own interpretation of what it would be, but I didn't do it in Greyhawk, and so it's my own. They're going to be like, well, we can't use that then, and inspired by, or adjacent to, or it's not really Greyhawk. I want my official Greyhawk stuff. So,
yeah, I mean, the fans are ardently, supporters of Greyhawk, and they would want a Greyhawk map.
Right.
I mean, I suppose I could draw a city components and have people put it together themselves, and it just happens to be exactly the city they want.
Yeah.
Build your own TM.
Speaking of building your own, and we're talking about role-playing games, slight shift in the conversation. And I don't know. I mean, this isn't anything anybody's talking about in the chat or anything that we've been talking about, but it's another topic that I'm going to bring up because props in your role-playing game around the table. How far do you go, and how much effort do you put in them for different settings? Because obviously, you know, if you're playing like a futuristic game, you're not going to try to like cobble together some futuristic prop to give to the players. You might do like a custom printout or a dossier folder with some information, but you're not like putting together like an electronic component array to hand to the players. I mean, unless you are. I guess that's my question: is how far do you go? How complex do you go? How much is it worth doing it for one-off items? Do you do it for something that's more relevant that might be around for a campaign? Question directed at you, Alyssa.
What's the context? Are you thinking about adding some props to your Shadowrun or something?
Well, yes. At the very base level, my personal selfish core of this question is: should I bother making props for my Shadowrun game if there might be things that are one-off items, there might be things that could potentially be long-term items, but now these are physical objects that are now in the world that the players are, who go home and come back and go home and come back. Do we keep them at the house? Do we let them take them home?
What defines a prop to you? Because you see, for me, a prop can be as simple as a mission dossier that is handed to you, complete in a little binder and stuff, with blueprints and stuff like that. That to me is a prop. That counts. Right. It doesn't have to be any more grandiose than that. So, but you're talking about, I think, something bigger.
Well, and my question at its core, my question was geared towards more, is more geared to how far do you go? Like, if for you, I mean, yes, I'm not saying that obviously a dossier is not a prop. That's totally a prop. But is that as quote unquote as far as you go? Like, you're like, I'll put together blueprints. I'll put together like some like a dossier on like a target. Maybe with like I'll mock up some photographs. Like I'll go that far. But like I won't mock up like a faux security pass complete with lanyard or a clip or something with like a employee photograph and barcode. Like I won't go that far. Like I'll give them everything but that. Like I won't give them like physical props. Like if you think about it, you actually are doing a map that's actually a couple of pieces broken out. Would you go so far in something like that where you'd actually find a way to like 3D print the broken shards of like what's supposed to be a disc, and then you give them to the players over time? Or it's like no, I'll give them like pictures of one, and it'll be like on nice cardstock, but I won't like I won't have like the physical 3D hard plastic item. Like how far do you feel like you should go, and what's enough?
And by the way, chat is pretty active, and I'm just going to say this now. I knew Alex Vixen was a nut with props. I just had this vibe, but nice. we'll come back to that. For me, I think it depends on the group. I think it depends on the game, and it certainly depends on the system. And I think for me, your props can't become a distraction. It can't be that's what it is all about. It's like you make props for your Shadowrun when you do a newspaper, right? Mm-hmm. Electronic newspaper. Mm-hmm. And it serves a purpose, and it's nice and self-contained, but it's a lot of work. And I think the more you introduce, the more you might even do a level of expectation from your players. But it may also be that, where's the time reward? I think if you do a mission dossier with blueprints and maps and things like that, and maybe you do the nice touch of a key card in there, then that's cool. That's cool, but the key cards are never going to be used. And you did do something like key cards once. But they're nice. But do you do that every time? Are you going to do a mock-up of an electronic keypad entry? Well, what's the point? Did it take you 50 hours to create this thing, but it's actually only 30 seconds of player focus? I think there has to be a certain amount of player focus on something. Like the whole thing about Call of Cthulhu maps, is or the Call of Cthulhu props is they get continually used and reused and re-referenced, and I don't, even down to the little passports that the players have got. These are things that keep coming out, so I think that it's worth putting effort into them. But if this is going to be something where it literally gets a couple of minutes of, ooh, you made this? That's so cool, and is never used again, I think it's borderline becoming a waste of time at that point. So I think that I would have to measure, effort versus reward and reusability, I think.
Got you. Let's see. From the chat, let's see. Julius says, if you can see the table, you're not using enough props. Nice. Alex says, Mike knows the effort I used to go into with my games. I seriously slipped from my... Oh, that was what you were saying, that Alex was big on the props. That's what you were mentioning.
I had a vibe. I just had a vibe. Well, actually, and while you're sort of reading through that, remember our good friend Thomas Webb?
Yes.
Who, a GM, runs Dungeons and Dragons, and got burnout because he would have to create custom 3D terrain every time for his games.
Right.
And he broke at one point because he put a huge amount of effort into this big, huge cave system, which he was actually going to give to us, because I feel like he didn't want to see it again, and his players bypassed it. They just never even went there. And that, I think, is a perfect example of Thomas. Sorry, Thomas, if you watch this at some point, but Thomas kind of go putting so much effort, it became about the prop. It became about that, and he poured in this huge amount of effort for something that got zero usage, zero attention. And I think that it has to be a balance right there, and that sweet spot can be pretty broad, but I think as a GM you always have to be somewhat judicious and know how much something's going to get used. Right.
Yeah, funnily enough, that
oh, and Tarnished Knight, by the way, did a spell book or something like that, which you should read.
Nice. Yeah, and back up in the chat, Brian McWhorter says his use of props depends on the group. If the group is really into role playing, he uses props to aid in that. And then the killing myself was separate to the spell book I made. The spell book was a collection of in-game spells that weren't in the player's handbook, so if the players playing casters decoded them, I let them learn the spells in question. And then Alex says, I once made a 6-piece circular map on cardstock and hand-cut the bastardsing thing out. Players just ignored the plot hook involving the map. And there... Yes, and then there was the near death and thing, with the book, and then Tarnished Knight saying I just did maps for the last time. I got fed up with certain players to stop playing Skyrim and pay attention. Oh no!
Oh, that would piss me off. That's a no-no.
Yeah, it's one of those things where there's a social contract that's an unspoken social contract that everybody, if you've agreed to play a role-playing game in person or digitally, through like a Skype or a Zoom or what have you, if you've agreed to that, in my opinion, you better fucking now put your entire attention there. I know, Alyssa, you and I are guilty of it, but people that check their phones during a game, whether it be email or Facebook or whatever, that chaps my ass so freaking much, so hard. And the problem is I'm a hypocrite because I've done it, which is terrible. And that's like, I hate myself when I do it because I'm like, this may be boring, but I agreed to game. I should be here for the gaming. If I'm not here for the gaming, why am I here?
Well, and I've definitely, I try to put my phone to one side and not even have it at a table. Then you have another member of our group that does have the phone there, and will even watch things on it. But I will say this, it's always directly related to how engaging the GM is being. Remember there was I don't even know who was running it for us, but you remember my character didn't feature, like, at all for hours and hours and hours. Do you remember that? I even forget who was running that thing. Like, my character just wasn't around. Might have been Dave, actually. Might have been Dave. And it's like, yeah, if so here's the deal. I mean, I'm 99% GM. I love GMing. And it is a social contract. The GM is going to bring in, hopefully, an entertaining game to you. The players have a responsibility to pay attention to the GM, because probably a lot of effort has gone into running that game for you. It is a two-way street. But if the GM doesn't uphold their side of the bargain, then I, as a player, if I'm not involved in the game, I'm going to break out my fucking phone, you know? And I don't do that straight away, but if, like, there's literally nothing going on, it's not entertaining me, I'm literally being kept out of this thing, then you're not here running for me now. So I do feel like it is a two-way street, but I do say that the responsibility is on the players to at least make an effort.
Right. And for amateur GMs who don't have experience on it, they obviously get a little bit of a pass, for sure, because obviously these are skills that they don't know yet. They haven't had groups that they run with. They don't know how to interact with people. But I agree. Any game where it's so focused on, if you think about it, actually, when we went to ReaperCon and we played in, it was the Dragonlance game. The guy running the game, he created the Dragonlance story, adventure based on the books, and was really proud of himself that he was basically doing a interactive retelling of, like, the first book or part of the first book or what have you. And the other players that were there that were really big fans of Dragonlance were digging it because they knew all the characters, and they were having so much fun circle jerking around the Dragonlance story and basically just doing a interactive video game, so to speak, of the book. I was sitting there like, what the hell is even happening right now? Like, they're having such, like, it would come to me, and I didn't know this character from the book, so I didn't know what the hell I was supposed to do or say or what have you. And, it'd be like, well, I'm gonna do this. And they'd be like, oh, you're playing such and such a character, you totally do this other thing. And I was like, oh, okay, I guess we'll do that then. And that was definitely a, like, I should just bust out my phone and just let all these people have fun, because I apparently am not part of this clique of the Dragonlance crew. That was a bit of an odd experience, for sure.
Well, in a way, it almost semi-relates to something that Julius just said, where a main problem had playing with a group was once there were some very loud players that totally was overriding him. And I think that is a GM's responsibility to nip that in the bud. As a GM, you've got to be able to, A, read your table, understand if people are louder or quieter than others, and you've got to be able to bounce between people. All around the table has got to have the same level of energy. And you can actually harness a player with a lot of energy to the benefit of the group, but you have to recognize if they begin to dominate, and obviously they will because they're an extrovert. And you've got to be able to go, no, hold on. So did you want to do anything? And you've got to be able to pull those quiet players into the game and give them the room to be able to do so. That is a GM skill that all GMs absolutely must have, and it's actually pretty hard.
Right? Yeah, because I know a lot of GMs that don't have that. Heck, a lot of our friends don't have that. Because they're not natural GMs in that regard. They have an interest in GMing, but they just don't have those GM skills to pull. They don't have that toolbox to pull from.
Players playing an actual computer game like Skyrim during a game, that's on the player. Well, it's on the GM to nip that in the bud, but that is massively rude by those players, like massively rude. Honestly, as a GM, I would say just go home and play your game. Just fuck off. If you're not here to play, why are you even here? You know, because even if as a GM you are running a scenario that someone else wrote, odds on you read the damn thing. That's your time. Odds on you've maybe read it 2 or 3 times, and you prepped. And
Right.
maybe you got some monster cards and some these cards, and you are there now to run a game for folks. And if they can't be asked to be there for
Right.
the game, then go away. Because honestly, it's distracting for other players. I've only ever seen that at the table once. I was a player in it, and I know what was going on because the player in question was having a real hard time with the GM, and the GM was not running a good game. But otherwise, it's completely unacceptable.
Right. Alex said, I had a Dragonlance campaign where I was basing around the White Dragon army as the antagonist, which is very briefly mentioned in the books. And the original White Dragon Lord dies in the second book, so I felt I had free reign on what I could do with the Dragon army. Cool, cool, cool. But going to props and things. Do you think?
Yes, props.
Do you think that the that different campaign settings or different game types um, vary, or do you think that that kind of mentality of how much it's going to be used, how much it's going to distract the players, that type of thing? Do you think that is pretty much blanket across all games? And game
I think
types?
it's blanket, but the game system you're playing, and certainly the group you're with, but the game system you're playing and the game you're running have a big say in what has value. For example, Shadowrun. If you want to make some key cards as a prop, even maybe buying some key cards or modifying them or something, that's cool. But are you going to spend 20 hours for something that players are going to get and go, oh, this is so cool, and then they're going to just tuck it into the back of their binder? I think that you've got to do a quicker version, right? But I do think it's absolutely worth, having, honestly, I love the whole idea of actually getting a mission pack, which maybe even has a freaking thumb drive in there, with files and shit like that on there. That I think can be really interesting, but then that's going to get used for the entire game, one would hope. If this is like the little potion bottle things that you talk about, or the vials, I think that could be absolutely worth it. But I also think the effort would be less than 6 hours total, and would probably give the players quite some enjoyment for some time to come. So I think, honestly, it's for me, it's just how much effort are you going to... Okay, let me give you a real-world example. The Masks campaign that I'm running mentions... like the two almost wands that you see some bad guys using at one point, right? I think the players even have them at this stage. Am I going to go out and make those things? No.
Right.
It serves no purpose in game. Literally none, other than for players to go, oh, that's so cool. That's it. Is it worth me making all of those spell books or those tomes that you've been finding? No. I mean, they're interesting. Sure, players are going to go, holy shit, how much time did you spend on that? And that will be it. Unless there's something in the book that then players have to reference, and now it becomes a much deeper level sort of prop, and it's not just a book anymore, So for me, it is time versus reward. It has to be every time.
Right. Time versus, and the reward obviously is, how much is it being used, how much and all that kind of jazz. And whether, like you said, whether it's them just going, oh, that's nice, and then whatever. Kind of going back on, launching off of that, and then also going back to what we were talking about before with, making props that don't end up getting used. That's that is kind of in my mentality on my speaking of my Shadowrun stuff, of those little those two-sided that double-sided news breakdown that I do. I did it originally. Well, my original idea of it was to tie the players into events that were happening around them, and potentially even touch on things that they themselves had been a part of. But then not only that, but I also wanted to introduce things that could be potential plot hooks, or even things that could potentially even tie into something that they're about to do or something that they may do in the future. However, that being said, I think players viewed it more as like an Easter egg, jokey, fun thing. And the players would read it and they'd put it away and they would never think about it again. And there were, I had a couple of things that were clues or even hints at future things, or even things that might even be happening right now in game, and nobody picked up on them. And not only that, but nobody read a story and went, "Hey, can I look into this more? Like this story that I just read, this little snippet of an article. I want to look into this more. What can I do? Can I do a search on the Matrix about this? You know, about can I do and set this as my search parameters to try to get some information on it?" Like nobody did that. Nobody had any interest in that. And so then it started to feel like a chore, because I wanted to keep the same level I'd been doing. But I didn't want to put any effort in because I knew that anything that I put in, nobody was going to give a shit about. So it was like, what's the point? Why am I doing this now? Why am I spending all this time doing this if nobody's ever going to look into any of this or pay attention to the words that's happening right here? You know. So I hear you. Reward, effort versus reward. It's definitely can be challenging.
That's an interesting point that you're making about that particular prop being almost misused. And I think that maybe is one of the important criteria. I think the purpose of the prop has to be known.
Right.
I think and that one I think was interpreted as a recap for things we have done versus sowing the seeds for things coming up. Right. And I think we just, as a group, we misinterpreted the intent. Therefore, we took them in a completely different way. And at that point, you're creating a prop we're not using.
Right. Okay. See, and then that kind of stuff is interesting, I like your idea of having like a mission dossier, at least in the sake of maybe a modern game or a space game or a Shadowrun game or what have you. You get like whoever's hiring you for the job brings to you like an info packet.
Yes, an info pack. Reference. The purpose of that info pack is immediately known, right? The content's purpose is immediately known. There's no ambiguity there.
Right.
By the way, I did get a mapping question from Forrest. By the way, you could always ask questions about maps. It's never going to be a problem. Do I look at real cities for ideas? Yes, 100%. I have somewhat of an advantage growing up in Europe because I was surrounded by these organically growing cities all of the time. So it kind of comes intrinsically natively to me, to think that way. But yeah, damn right I do. I'm always studying castle plans, city plans, town plans, just all of the time. Not only do I draw some of them, Luxembourg, Dubrovnik, for example, but I learn from them too. It's not like I'm just drawing the walls of Dubrovnik and not thinking about it. I'm kind of watching what I'm doing and why are they shaped like this and what is this section here. So yeah, I am always looking at real world life, and honestly even just coastlines and such. One of my favourite maps of all time, this one actually, I got from a real world coastal line that I was observing. Always looking for ideas like that from life.
Nice. Yeah, Forrest continues in saying that they've been looking at some aerial, high elevation and night shots of cities. And it's been really interesting to see how the streets of old cities grow organically over time.
Paris, I think, is a great one too. Just the way that Paris grew, I love that. So Jack, I mean, if you're pondering, props for Shadowrun or any other game, I suppose.
Yeah.
Honestly, for me, I think the rules would have to be: is this going to get used more than once, and use is not the player just reading it and putting it away, never looking at it again. It has to be something where the players go, hold on a minute, did I read something? Then now I think if there's a second touch on a prop, it's worth having a second touch rule. I think
Right.
a mission pack, an itinerary, things like that. I mean, honestly, the tickets that I do for that Brian McWhirter created for us. One could argue that they are a single touch prop and they are never used again.
Right.
And I know that when I do them. With them, my objective for the prop is to give the players a chuckle and make you smile. Period. Right. That's the level of effort that goes into them. I'm going to make them look nice. I'm going to print them out. They're going to have little tear strips on them and everything. But I know they're only going to get used once. And I'm okay with that. The purpose is to set up the journey that is to come. It's part of the ambience of that journey.
Right.
And period. But I think you've got to, I think as a prop maker, you have to know how will this be used. Remember at the beginning of my game, I was describing this mummified hand, like in a jar, that like one of the Nazis had, and James never sort of did anything with it. Mm-hmm. I was going to make that prop.
Oh, indeed.
But why? What for?
Right.
Serves no purpose. It would be a little ornament in the room. That would be it.
Totally. And I'm almost glad you didn't, because he ignored that character. He avoided that character during his prequel scenario. Yeah.
And I had photos of the character and everything. And I think if James had shown an interest and gone further, now it's worth putting some effort into. So I think you've got to balance that too.
Right, because I guess that's another thing, is you don't know how the players are going to behave. You presented that scenario, and he was like, "Oh, that guy's bad juju. We need to get away from this guy. We need to like go around this thing." And they completely bypassed interacting with that character. Thereby, you were like, "Well, wait a minute. Damn, I had all this info. I had this thing. I was going to plan out a prop. I had photos." He played his character so cautiously. He didn't even interact with the dang character. And you had no idea. You thought he would have been like, "We got to take this guy out. Let's go get him."
Yeah, nope.
And then nope. Yeah. Tarnished Knight, have I played the Shadowrun games on Steam? Do you mean Shadowrun Returns, Dragonfall, and Hong Kong? Those ones? If so, yes. I love them to death. Absolutely love them.
Forest, exactly. That's what I'm talking about. Like those older European cities. Honestly, just let's call them the East. Eastern Europe. Those cities, the cities with histories that go back 1,000, 2,000 years or more. Those are the ones where you can see how they grew. I think American cities are absolutely planned. By the way, there were some French ones that were planned too. Just because it's older doesn't mean it wasn't planned. But I think you could harness that depending on what you're trying to draw or invoke, right? I mean, if I'm going to do a modern city plan, if I'm going to be drawing a superhero city map, I'm going to be looking more like American planned cities versus European sprawling things that have just grown up from a hamlet.
Nice.
Julius wants to know the order. Yeah.
You should, in my opinion, you should do them in release order, because each one, as you go in the chronology, references the other games, and also, in my opinion, the games get better with each iteration. So if you played like the third one first and then you went back to the first one, you'd be like, So I would say Shadowrun Returns, then Dragonfall, and then Hong Kong. That's the order they came out in. And while they're not interconnected, they're three completely different stories. You can find Easter eggs to the other games in them as you progress along. Like when you play the second one, there's a little tiny Easter egg about the first one, and then when you play the third one, there's an Easter egg about the second one. I don't know if there's any Easter eggs about the first one in the third game, but I would recommend. And they changed some of the game mechanics. They improve them as they go on with each game. And so if you start playing, like if you play Dragonfall or Hong Kong first and you try to go back and play the first one, you'll be like, oh man, why isn't this feature in this game? That was so good. And it not having it here is kind of annoying. So if you start with Returns and they don't have that feature, then when you play Dragonfall, they've introduced a feature. You're like, oh, that's a cool feature. That's the way to do it. All the stories are great. You should play them all, in my opinion. Yeah, that was my favorite bit. Tarnished Knight. I think Alyssa can confirm. I think I came running out of my office going, eee! My favorite character! My favorite character in the Shadowrun universe! It was great.
He did indeed go, eee! Yes. And told me all about it.
I think the biggest prop that I'm currently going to do that I have planned is isn't even a prop for a current like mission or anything. It's going to be the one that's basically going to be almost like a card catalog of people that you've met and kind of what categories they fall under. You know, I kind of want to create almost like little info cards based on allies and enemies and contacts, people that you've met, and things that they have access to, that type of thing, or like enemies that you've met that you haven't dealt with, and like what they could potentially bring to bear against you, you know, or like if there's companies that they're associated with or that type of thing, you know.
Okay. And this is something that like players would have access to, be given?
Yeah, it would be for the players, and it would be one of those things where the players themselves could then update them as they saw fit, with notes about them. And then, like, theoretically, whenever a new major NPC was introduced, you know, it would be here's a card for them. If you'd like, you can add this to your thing. So, like, for example, you guys met the Fixer. Well, he wasn't a Fixer. He was a Johnson. But Cosmo, you know, and he hired you guys, I think, for one job, and then his associate hired you guys for another job. But you would have basically, you know, Cosmo and his entourage as a card, and you could be, you know, as a potential someone. He could potentially act as a fixer, or you could contact him for future jobs, or maybe he'll contact you. And maybe if a job goes south and he betrays you, you can make a note like, this guy's not trustworthy. He let us hang in, you know. So if we ever see that he's associated with a job, we don't take it, or we ask for more money, or blah blah blah. You know, that type of thing.
I gotcha. I do want to say thank you, Forrest, for the subscription. Very, very much appreciated. Nice. I also do want to acknowledge that we're actually a little over an hour and a half here. We're hitting like closer to an hour and 40. And I've just been minding my own business, drawing little squares here. What are we, about half done with the Rich District here?
Nice. That's fantastic. Nice. Alex and Tarnished Knight are reminiscing about some of their past Shadowrun things.
Nice. Well, look, this time just flew by. Jack, thank you so much for being with us today.
Of course.
I'm just working away on this map. Now, I am going to be on this map again tomorrow night, but it will be just little old me. But I really, really, really want to try pushing hard on this map and finishing it. Honestly, I would love to finish it part way through, even if it's the second half of June. That's my objective with this one. Then that's going to go off for colouring. Then on Wednesday, we're going to be working on the cosmology of role-playing games. And I think we're actually going to start plopping down some games. I'm just going to start working through our list. And we're going to start developing the style for suns, planets, moons, and asteroid belts, and that type of thing. So that's the schedule for this week. So back tomorrow, 5:30 Pacific Standard Time. I do want to thank all of you for watching. It's really appreciated. And if you're watching after the fact, thank you to you as well. Special shout out to all of my patrons. You make this absolutely possible. And until tomorrow, Jack, say good night.
Good night.
And I will see you all on the flip side. Huge amount of love to every single one of you. Back on this tomorrow night. Let's see how aggressively we can push this thing. Everyone have an absolutely wonderful evening or morning if you're one of the weirdos over there in Scotland. Love you all.